Hello, senior design teams. I hope that you have had a great start of your projects and you're working on the next steps. In this video, I will go over requirements and how to do of project plan and prepare a project plan and risk plan. As a reminder, this is something that we've covered in 361. Basically, I think what I'm giving you today is 4 lectures in 361. So I've compressed it into 15 minutes of just kind of refresh your memory on some of the stuff that we've covered. But if you need more details of it, you got to go either back to ME 361 or reach out to me and I'll provide you additional details and information about them. Just a reminder of where things are. So I hope you're working on your IP forms and signature of IP forms. They're due by October 2nd. And next steps that you got to do is project plan, Gantt chart, risk plan, and your preliminary and final budget, which I will be talking about in next videos. But in this video, we'll focus on this step. As a reminder, it's due October 9th. 5 p.m. on Blackboard. Okay, looking back at the overview of mechanical design, if you remember, we had this elaborate flowchart that covers the area of design. The short form of it is this box on top. It's the main 4 stages of mechanical design are project definition, product definition, conceptual design, and product development. In this flowchart, it has an extra step also, which is product support. Again, this is something that we've covered in ME 361 and explained different steps of it. Here's a little bit of a description. In project definition and project planning, which you are right now, you are in step 1 and 2. You are planning for the process to allocate your teams and ME department resources, which are money, equipment, people, time, anything that you need to accomplish the project, to get your idea to a product or prototype, depending on type of project that you are doing. In product definition, which again, it could be done at the same time, which I'm sure you are engaging in right now, is understanding the problem and lay out the foundation for the work. But also identify the customer requirements for the product. In this case, would be your sponsor, which either your faculty mentor or the company that you're working on, or if there's a student challenge, what requirements are there for your student challenge and the student competition. And at the end of step 2, you generate your engineering specifications and list of constraints that you have for the project. In conceptual design, you have to develop concepts, evaluate concepts, select between your concepts, pick a final concept, and move on. And at every step, you need to document and communicate that with your team, with your sponsor, with your mentor. In product development, which will be next semester, you will be developing a product or a prototype. Evaluate it, test it, make revisions, make modifications, and make decisions. Product support is what most of you don't have to worry about. It's that after you've done with the product, give it to the sponsor, you need to support the manufacturers, vendors, customers, and provide any additional modifications that might be needed. But again, you don't need to worry about that. Throughout the project, it is essential that you perform project management and project control throughout your project. Project management, if you remember, it's the activity of planning and coordinating resources and tasks. So resources and tasks to achieve the goals of the project. In project control, you need to coordinate and facilitate myriad tasks that are required to complete the project. So as you can see, tasks are the key here, and developing and making sure that the task that you develop for your project are accurate, precise, feasible, easy to understand, easy to follow, and achieve. Again, looking back more on the project management, these are the project management documents that we covered in ME361, that you have all of these documents for your senior design project in some of them in different form. Right now, we're working on project plan, which again it gets you from an idea to a product or a prototype. That's a roadmap for your project. In your project plan that you submit, you have a task list, which we're going to talk about next. For senior design, your budget is a separate document, and it is submitted separately. It's a separate document. You have a contract book. In senior design, we call it engineering notebook, or log books or lab notebooks. But that has all of the documents, progress, efforts, activities, calculations that you do for your project. Team staffing and organization, we're done with this part. This is something that I help you put together a team, submit your team, assign a project, assign a mentor to your project, and move on. So we're done with this part. Project schedule, again, goes back to tasks and finding task dependencies. This is something that we do with a task list and submit as one document. We use Gantt chart to kind of keep the project schedule, a visual representation. But if you remember, there are different ways of presenting it and keep tracking. Design structure matrix or network diagrams or critical path method that we covered in 361. Project risk plan is also something, it's a one-page document that I've added this semester because of the pandemic and the uncertainties and unknowns that are facing us. I've developed this one-page document that you can include at the end of your project plan to submit. And we'll talk about all of these. So going back to project plan. So what we do as a project plan for senior design includes task list, include Gantt chart, and include that one-page risk plan. So it has 3 elements, but you can kind of see all of them in project management documents. Moving on to project planning, I've mentioned this a couple of times already. It is the scheme or the roadmap for completing all the tasks that requires to achieve the goals of the project, and it shows that how much resources are required. Resources were 3 things: time, money, people, or equipment, stuff like that. So every activity that is needed to complete the project, including what is needed for the class, such as creating a poster, taking a photo, creating a video, signing the IP forms, establishing a weekly schedule, everything that is related to this project, every activity that you do, every task needs to go in your project plan. So talking about project plan and the steps you can take to build your project plan. First of all is to identify tasks. So tasks, remember, are activities that takes current state of the project and take us to the final product. They need to be as specific as possible. And one thing that I want to mention again, focus on what needs to be done. What needs to be achieved, okay? Not on the activity itself, okay? So it is really important to have what are you achieving by doing this in mind. The next step is to define objective and deliverables for each task that you're establishing. In next couple of slides, I will talk about objective and deliverable. We get into it a little bit more and what needs to be done. Then you got to estimate your resources. Remember, people, time, money are the main things. That includes equipment, facility that you need as well. Then you got to define your task dependencies. Task dependencies, which I will talk about, is flow of information. Remember how information is flowing between your tasks and how they are dependent on each other. So there were three types: sequential, parallel, and coupled. So you got to identify those. That helps you rearrange your task and develop a Gantt chart. You also need to estimate the cost for your project. Again, this is for your entire project, not the product. Cost of the project. This will be a separate document, project budget, which I will be talking about in the next video. So going back to that, objective and deliverables, because I often see students confuse those two with each other. So task objective is what you try to achieve by completing that task. Task deliverable is the result of that task, and it needs to be something tangible, something that you can see, read it, print it, save it, touch it. That's a physical realization or a document as a result of that task. So here's an example for you. Task, for example, is doing FEA analysis. The objective of task, what you're trying to achieve, is to analyze the frame under different loading using, for example, ANSYS software. What would be your deliverable for that task? What is the result of doing that? Your result would be an analysis report, a document that you can save, send it to your mentor, send it to your sponsor, print it, analyze it, read it. I saw one time a team put doing FEA analysis, objective was to analyze frame or do examples to learn FEA. The deliverable was feel confident enough about FEA. That is not a deliverable, because how can you measure or how can you see a feeling? Who says if you're feeling comfortable enough or not? So again, this is important. The deliverable. What else you need to include in your description of task is the duration. Some people put 2 weeks, some people put dates, some people put both, and what resources are needed for completing that task, and who is responsible for that task. I understand that some tasks that you do required maybe 2, 3, 4 members or all team members to work on it. But it is really helpful if you put one person in charge of that task, so they can coordinate between people. The other thing that was in project plan is estimating your time. So here's a table. This was from one of the case studies that we did in ME361. But if you remember, we had a US Navy model that we talked about it. That's a good way of estimating your task duration if you're not 100% sure. So it had time estimate, which was T sub E, A 4TM 4TB divided by 6. T sub A was most optimistic. T sub M is most realistic. And T sub B was most pessimistic. So this is a good model to use, and there are other different models for estimating your time, but this is a model developed by US Navy, and this is something that we talked about in ME361. One other thing in your project plan steps that you need to figure out is finding your task dependencies. Again, remember, this is flow of information. And that's how tasks depend on each other. So there were 3 main types: sequential, parallel, and coupled. In sequential tasks, a later task can start. This one can start with partial information, but it cannot finish until the task before it is finished and all the information is received, and so on. The parallel are the tasks that are both dependent on the information from previous tasks. And again, remember, this is flow of information. Okay, so the examples that I showed you here that you are seeing, if you remember, it is from a case study from Cheetah project by Kodak. So that's why the names that you're seeing in the boxes are from. So these are all flow of the information. In a coupled task, so they are coupled, meaning they are mutually dependent on each other, and they required flow of information between them, and they can be done and they should be done simultaneously at the same time. So once you figure out the task dependencies, then you can move on to the graphical representation of it, which for senior design we use Gantt chart. You all have done an exercise on Gantt chart and developed the Gantt chart for your project in ME361. This is a graphical representation of the work breakdown schedule. This is a description of schedule and shows your timeline. And it has bars that each bar shows length of time and connection between tasks. And also by looking at a certain date, and this is current date, you can see what tasks are behind, what tasks are ahead, and what tasks are going to start, and what tasks have not started yet. The last thing that I mentioned that I've added this semester that you need to do is a one-page kind of a questionnaire that you need to fill out and include as the last page of your project plan. If you want to submit it as a separate document, that's totally fine with me. So with the situation going on, again, I ask a simple question of what if there is a change in this semester's schedule, if things move 100% online. That's a big if. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's good to think about it. Or in case the spring semester is still in HyFlex, hybrid model, or fully online, it is good to think about what you're going to do and how the project is going to move forward. So the questions, very simple questions. How is your team meetings being done? If they're online, all of them now, fine. If not, what is going to change? How your engineering notebooks are going to be graded. That's something that I want you to talk to your mentors in case one of you is remote or all of you are remote, how your mentor is going to get your notebooks. How are you going to do your material purchasing? How are you going to do your manufacturing and testing? And the most important one, how is your sponsor going to get the final product in case some of you or all of you are remote and cannot be on campus in person? And the last thing is, how are you dropping your lab notebooks or engineering notebooks to your mentors? Last semester, after everything moved online, I know some groups and some mentors had trouble getting the engineering notebook and grading students' work. So these are stuff that I want you to fill out and include with your project plan. So if you look on Blackboard under course content, and if you go to examples, there are examples from previous years, previous semesters, project plans that you can look at. None of these have a risk plan in them because we were not in a global pandemic at the time. So they don't have risk plan, but they all have task lists and everything that needs to go into your project plan and a Gantt chart. So let's quickly look at some of them. So one thing that everyone includes, and I know your mentors will mention to you, is we need a brief project overview. This could be anywhere from a paragraph to a page to a couple of pages. It depends on the project. So you just give a brief description of what the project is, what are you trying to achieve. I'll let you go through the examples and read the details of it, how each project was different, but I have just mentioned here for you guys to just show you that these are available on Blackboard for you to look at them and go through them if you want. If there was any information from a certain vendor or a company, I try to redact those information and blank them out on the document. The other thing that you need to include is a summary of task list, or you can call the summary a table of tasks. This will serve two purposes. The first purpose is for you and your mentor or sponsor to just quickly look and see where you are. The second is this will make your life much easier when you want to develop a Gantt chart. You just copy paste this table into either Excel or MS Project and it will generate the Gantt chart for you. Again, I'll let you go through the documents on Blackboard and see each project, how tasks are listed. It usually has a start date, duration, and end date. And one thing that I've seen is very helpful. Also, they include the lead person, another column with the lead person on it. I think this last one, it's directly from Excel when they generated their Gantt chart. So after that, you move on to the description of each task. So provide the objective, deliverables, resources, duration, time, personnel, and all of that stuff that we talked about. Again, please go through the examples on Blackboard. There is 4 or 5 examples for you that you can look and compare different tasks. And finally, you get a Gantt chart to include with your project plan. I think this one was generated by MS Project, that you can easily see the current date. And you can see this task. This has a table next to it, which I didn't include. Let's say this is task number 16 or 14. You can see that task 14 is started and it is about 40% complete, because you can see another bar inside that bar, but it should have been 85% complete. So this is a very good representation of quickly see what tasks are behind and what tasks are ahead. These are other ways that the students made the Gantt chart. I think this one is made by Excel. And here's another one with the task list and another form of showing. Whatever works for you and your sponsor and your mentor, it is totally fine. So once you submit your project plan, your mentor will grade your project plan and budget. The grading is together. This grading is available for you on Blackboard to look and read the details of it, or you can just pause the video right here and just read through it. But they're very straightforward, very clear. If you complete what I've covered in this lecture, then you can easily get a good score on your project plan and budget. So remember, grading for senior design, except your engineering notebook and your weekly performance, everything else is in a group. Well, I shouldn't say everything else, because your presentation is also individual. But so project plan and your budget and your report, poster, final report, video, all of that are graded by group. So that means you get 1 grade for an entire group. So it is important that every member of the team participate, and every member of the team make sure that you're okay and you're 100% satisfied by what is submitted. Okay, so just make sure that you are okay what is submitted for your entire team. Lastly, as I mentioned, it's due October 9th by 5 p.m. Make sure you submit it on a link on Blackboard. And the IP forms, I see a lot of teams are starting to upload their files on Blackboard. IP forms, don't forget about that as well. For project plan Gantt chart, you can submit 1 file, or you can submit 2 files as project plan Gantt chart, or you can submit 3 files, project plan, Gantt chart, risk plan. It does not matter to me. You are able to submit however you want, and I'll get all of those files. Thank you.